that represents the last 10 to 15,000 years of human evolution. Now, does anyone know why that's significant? Yes? Agriculture was introduced. Absolutely, very, very good. Agriculture was introduced in the last 15 to 10,000 years. This tiny millimeter, which the guys in the back row can't even see me writing in, is the last 100 years. Okay? Now, what I'm going to suggest to you guys is that we go back to eating and living in this period here, not this period or this period. So it's very, very simple. Essentially, what did we eat in the last 5 billion years? We ate things that were hunted, we ate things that were fished, we ate things that were gathered, and we ate things that were plucked. Okay? We drank water, and we essentially slept half our lives. Okay? And we slept half our lives without cell phones, or computers, or aquariums next to our head, or anything that vibrates next to our head. We slept restfully and peacefully. And sleep, by the way, guys, is often the most underrated tool in terms of increasing guys' testosterone, fat loss, muscle building. It has a massive impact. If you guys don't sleep, please do talk to me after this presentation, because we can talk about that, because it is, for me, working with clients, that is the first thing that I support to get someone sleeping. The reason being, I'll tell you, it's no secret, the reason why I want people sleeping restfully is because it increases compliance. So if I say to someone, you're going to do this, if they sleep well, they're more likely to comply because they've rested well. So it's no secret why I do that. So as we said before, this is the introduction of grains into the diet. And this tiny 100 years, millimeter, represent incandescent to the human eye, represents the last 100 years of food industry. So what it represents, essentially, is things like canola oil. It represents things like KFC, obviously, McDonald's, the 24/7. We didn't have seasons 24/7 here. It looks at Coca-Cola, things like high fructose corn syrup, which was only developed in the 70s. By the way, canola oil, margarine, all the trans fatty acids were only developed in 1911. So shortening, all these foods are last 100 years. Our genes, genetically, as a species, have evolved exactly 0.02% in that time frame. So in other words, we haven't adapted to this diet at all. Nothing. The adaptation actually is all these autoimmune diseases, it's diabetes, it's bad skin, pimple, all these westernized diseases that we now have. That is the adaptation. It's not a positive one by any means. If we want to be lean and muscular and have boundless energy, we need to do certain things. We need to reduce the toxic load in our body, okay? All foods essentially in this past, if it has a label, you want to eat foods that essentially don't have labels, okay? If you're drinking chocolate milk, just remember chocolate milk is actually, most of the time, the worst. When milk is manufactured, it is all the gunk and the blood and all the other stuff, because chocolate milk is the easiest to color. So if it's all the blood and stuff, that's essentially what you're drinking, yeah? It's not good for you. And it's obviously loaded with sugar, preservatives, all that. It's a toxic load on your body, a toxic load your body doesn't need. So coming back to this, just to recap on what we've talked about, things that are hunted, fished, gathered, and plucked. Now, there's a very important book that was written in nutrition. It was written by a man named, actually I won't write it, you guys can write it down, a man written Weston A. Price. Weston A. Price was a dentist in the 1930s, well, actually he was a researcher primarily, but he was in the 1930s, so you guys are smiling on because you know exactly where I'm going with this, 1930s to 1940s. And he had a fascination with teeth. So what he did, his life's work was to go around to, I think it was 21 countries off the top of my head, or maybe it was 14. He wrote a book called Nutrition and Physical Degeneration, and he photographed all different cultures, both who were influenced by a Western diet and those who ate their native diet. And he looked at their teeth, and he found that the people who ate the native diet had, perfect teeth, and drew a correlation. The thing is, with the hunted, fish, gathered, and plucked law, the reason why I bring up Weston Price is because what you eat essentially is a little bit based upon where you come from, genetically, okay? So, for example, if you come from a Maori descent, or if you're like an Inuit, you guys probably didn't eat a lot of carbohydrates, or you ate very, very little, because all you ate was fat and protein. So especially the Inuit in the colder regions of the world, nothing grew there. All they ate was fish, fat and protein. If you went up more, in the Swiss, look at the Swiss culture, what they ate, with lots of dairy, vegetables, but it was mainly a lacto-vegan diet. They did eat meat, but again, that was based on availability. Meat was always based on availability. And one thing about Weston A. Price is he actually did search, and he thought he was going to see a vegetarian society. He thought that was going to be the healthiest, but he actually didn't see that at all. The only time people ate meat was always based on availability. And if you look at some of the Lakota tribe, an Indian tribe, they ate 4 kilos to 2 kilos, it's reported, 2 to 4 kilos of meat a day. And they were one of the most brutal, strong, physically tribes that was ever recorded. So if you essentially, when I go out, I've got to talk about this because essentially there are some social elements to eating like this that come with it. If you go out with your friends and you're like, all right, I'm going to implement this, eat things that are hunted, fish, gathered, and plucked into my diet. 90%, I would say, probably even more, but we'll just say 90% of people eat foods that are based in the last 100 years. So they eat foods off this. The rest of the time they might, 9% of the time they might eat the grains, and then 1% of the time they might eat here. So essentially people will look at me and they'll say it's not normal. Well, actually, looking at human evolution, I'm normal, they're common, okay? And that's a key mindset shift that you have to understand and you have to get. I'm normal, you're normal. If you eat off these foods, that is what's normal. This is just what's common, okay, these two here. So eat what's normal, not what's common today. Eat what's normal based on your genetics. The other way I put it to people, we've got Macs and PCs in the room. Now, it's essentially the factory-operated and factory-specified fuel. If we take out that Mac battery and we plug it into that PC, the PC will run because it's a fuel source, but it's not the optimal fuel source for that PC. Okay, the optimal fuel source for that PC is the PC battery that was developed by the manufacturer, let's say in this case IBM, and that's what it needs to run on. Okay, so we can run our bodies off these things here, however, they won't run optimal at all. Okay, so moving on. So again, as you guys saw before, actually I'll leave that there. As you guys saw before, and excuse me, I will have to refer to the notes just to keep on track. But as you guys saw before, I do specialize in fast body composition changes. Okay? So some of my recommendations, again, they're only recommendations that if you guys want to implement and change your physiques fast, is to eat every 2 to 3 hours. Okay? Now, it's not something that you have to be absolutely religious about. If you're a healthy person and you're happy with where you're at currently, you don't have to eat every 2 to 3 hours. Okay? But what I've found from my experience is that if you want to change someone's body composition in the shorter space of time, eating every 2 to 3 hours definitely has its benefits. Okay? The reason being is because it mitigates the effect of a hormone called insulin. Who's here is familiar with the hormone called insulin? Everyone. Excellent. So let me just put it to you like this. Insulin is essentially your, I guess, the hormone responsible for storing body fat. Okay? Now, it's not that insulin is a, I guess, quote-unquote bad thing. We need insulin. And if you look at it like this over the course of the day, okay, let's say we start our breakfast with a general way of which most people do, which is, Kellogg's cornflakes and, skim milk. By the way, anytime you hear low fat, just think chemical shitstorm, okay? Again, coming back to my basic principle of things that are hunted, fish, gathered, and plucked, you want to get things as unrefined as possible, so as natural as possible. Milk was never meant to be low fat. Didn't happen, okay? If you drank milk in the way it was supposed to come out of a cow, it had fat in it, okay? So just to keep in mind. But if we have one of those breakfasts, your blood sugar raises, okay? Now, because your blood sugar elevates, there's a hormone that coincides with that, which I'll draw in red, which is insulin. So insulin rises, and essentially high blood sugar in the bloodstream is toxic. So we can't have all this circulating blood sugar in the cell because it's going to cause a whole lot of damage. So essentially what insulin does is wrangles up all this blood sugar and drives it in to the muscle or to the liver, or if the muscle is full, it will drive it into the fat cell. Okay? Simple as that. So the way I describe it is, see, in coming back to the football overall, the only time humans or the Paleolithic human had access to high amounts of refined sugar was when? Does anyone know? No, well, actually, fruits. Someone said fruits. Fruits today have been commercialized. Yeah, so fruits are a lot bigger. They're a lot sweeter. So yes, there was fructose in the fruit, but there's also a lot of fiber in the fruit. And fruit, in the Paleolithic environment was a different machine than it is today. So yes, there was sugar in there, but where I was going with this, like, there's also a lot of fiber in the fruit, okay? That's why we eat fruit, and fruit's not, I guess, insidiously bad, but there was the fiber content there, and there was more fiber then than, due to farming the land and reducing soil quality and all those other things, and farming for bigger yields, fruit has been, the nutrient value anyway has been diminished. The only time that humans really had access to refined amounts of sugar